Episode 4. As she hurried out of the company, she saw Logan Taylor, the president of the Taylor Group. He was a well-known pervert in Arcadia, and he loved to play with women, regardless of whether they wanted to play too. Rosalyn was so scared when she saw him walking towards her, a snake-like smile on his face, that she quickly turned around. But Logan was quicker. He grabbed her hand and pulled her into his arms. "Where are you going in such a rush, baby?" He lowered his head, leaned close to Rosalyn's ear, and gently blew against her. His warm breath on her ear made her goosebumps rise, and she shivered in disgust. Rosalyn pushed Logan away desperately, but he held her waist tight, unable to move. "You smell so good." He pushed his nose into her hair and inhaled deeply, while his hands moved upward to touch her chest. Rosalyn pressed down on his hand and said coldly, "Mr. Taylor, please behave yourself." "Behave? Why should I?" Logan said mischievously, nibbling on her earlobe. Logan may have looked unassuming, but his words and actions repulsed Rosalyn to her core. She turned her head and showed disgust in her eyes. But Logan didn't care. In fact, it excited him even more. The more a woman resisted, the more he wanted to conquer her. Logan lifted her chin with one hand and caressed her cheek with his fingers. "Mr. Taylor, please. Have some dignity. We hardly know each other." Rosalyn shook off his hand angrily. Logan first targeted Rosalyn when she went to deliver documents to the Taylor Group a month ago. Since then, he had often come to the company to harass her under the guise of business. Whenever he met her, he touched her inappropriately or harassed her with rude words. Rosalyn needed this job to earn money, so she couldn't afford to offend Logan, and so she always endured his harassment. But now that she was about to leave this company for good, she was no longer afraid of him. Unexpectedly, although she treated him coldly, Logan was not fazed. He even pinched her face affectionately. "Maybe we aren't close," he hissed. "But if you accepted my offer to spend the night with me, we could get to know each other much better." He was persistent. She gave him that. Rosalyn suppressed her disgust and pushed his body away. The more she resisted, the tighter his grip on her became. He kissed her hard on her cheek. The feel of his ice-cold lips on her skin almost made Rosalyn puke. Just as she was about to punch Logan in the face, she suddenly heard a voice behind her. "Andrew?" When Rosalyn heard that name, her body stiffened. She slowly turned from Logan's embrace and looked towards Andrew standing at the elevator gate. She could not see his expression clearly because she was far away, but only felt the pair of amorous eyes staring at her without blinking. The coldness emanating from his eyes seemed to be able to devour her in an instant. As soon as Brandon Moore, the chairman of Elite International Corporation, walked into the company, he saw Andrew. He quickly walked over with the shareholders and asked, "Andrew, why are you here today?" Only then did Andrew look away and reply to Brandon, "I sent Crystal here." Brandon understood that Andrew was here to back his daughter up. He nodded satisfactorily and said, "Thank you for your time. Crystal has just returned to the country, yet she made you run back and forth for her." "No big deal. I'll soon return to my company." Andrew smiled and replied politely, "Go ahead. Don't delay your work." "I'll take Crystal to visit you officially in a few days," Brandon said. Andrew nodded and left. The bodyguards behind him quickly divided into two groups to protect him. He didn't even spare Rosalyn a glance when he passed by her. As expected, it was just an illusion. Since Andrew didn't care about her, how could he stare at her? It wasn't until Andrew was far away that Logan realized it was the Kingston family's second son. He quickly let go of Rosalyn and chased after Andrew to greet him. However, Andrew entered the car and slammed the door shut. Dozens of luxury cars parked outside followed him and drove away. Having failed to catch him, Logan had no choice but to turn back and look for Rosalyn, only to see her fleeing toward the guest elevator. Logan touched his lips, where he had just kissed Rosalyn's, and his eyes showed the excitement of hunting his prey. "Mark, go and find me Rosalyn's address," Logan ordered. "Yes, sir." Mark, following behind Logan, immediately replied. Now that she knew the truth, she had completely given up. Rosalyn turned off her phone and fell asleep on the sofa. After sleeping for an unknown time, a knock on the door woke her up. Recently, Polly had been working the night shift and coming back late, so she gave her key to Rosalyn. Hearing the knock on the door, she thought it was Polly coming back from work, so she quickly got up to open the door. But when she opened the door, she saw Logan instead of Polly. At the sight of that pretentious face, Rosalyn turned impatient instantly. She hurriedly wanted to close the door, but Logan stretched out his long arm and pushed the door open. Frightened by his action, Rosalyn took a step back. "Mr. Taylor? How could this pervert find her home?" Logan suddenly found it very interesting to see that Rosalyn was as frightened as a rabbit. He placed his hands on the door and looked at her with his head tilted. "What are you afraid of? I won't bite." His eyes were jet black, with a hint of mixed-race ash. When he stared at her, he exuded an excitement of catching prey. "Miss Bell, are you not going to invite me in?" His question was polite, but Rosalyn was frightened when she heard it. She knew what kind of person Logan was and what he would do. How could she let him in? In his dream, she said with a cold face, "Sorry, this is my friend's house. It's not convenient." After this, Rosalyn wanted to close the door quickly, but Logan stepped in with long legs and closed the door behind him. He had come in and closed the door. Rosalyn didn't even have a chance to escape. Her face darkened. "Mr. Taylor, what the fuck are you going to do?" "To fuck you. Am I clear?" Logan flirted. As he spoke, his eyes were fixed on her chest, not hiding his purpose. Rosalyn changed into a silk pajama with a slightly low neckline. Before bed, Logan was taller than her, so he could see everything from above. Rosalyn quickly closed her pajamas and covered her chest. However, she wrapped herself so tightly that her curvy figure was fully displayed. Rosalyn was breathtakingly beautiful, with a face the size of a palm. Her charm could not be ignored, although she appeared sick and weak. Her features were delicate and flawless, with clear and dewy eyes that were as pure as crystal. Her wavy hair was thick, glossy, and in tip-top condition, spilling down on her shoulder and framing her full chest. Her slender waist, perfect waist-hip rate, and fair long legs stirred Logan's desire up. Her sexy figure could arouse anyone with just one glance, and Logan was no exception. When she came to deliver the documents that day, he couldn't help but want to penetrate her right there. Now she was standing in front of him in her sexy pajamas. How could he stand it? The heat all over his body made Logan lose his mind, and he pushed Rosalyn against the wall. "1 million, buy you tonight. Is that a deal?" Rosalyn was so scared that she trembled, desperately pushing her hands against Logan's chest to keep him away. "Get out. I'm not a prostitute." She had just jumped out of the fate of being kept as a mistress, but she didn't expect that someone would buy her with money so soon. It was ridiculous. 5 million, plus a villa. "Even if you give me $100 million, I won't accept it. You'd better let me go, or I'll call the police." "Go ahead and call the police. Let's see who dares to arrest me."
Full story is available at novelpalace.com. Click the link in the comment section to get it free.